appreciate it. We're live. Hi, YouTube. Hello, welcome. Oh, wait, I'm sharing my camera. Darn it. I keep doing this. I'm sorry, YouTube. I'm sorry. Charge it to my head, not my heart. I go during commercial break on the Lurie Daniel Favors show. I will sometimes go off camera because I got stuff I got to do, especially when I'm filming from the home studio. So sorry, don't mean to show up with a blank screen, but I'm here. Hi, welcome to the Lurie Daniel Favors show experience. Hope everybody is doing well, getting ready for the weekend. We got a lot to unpack today. And I have some questions. Some things that I think we need to mull over, that we need to think about. And we're going to do it here because I feel like we've created enough of a community to where we can sort of bounce things off of each other and think differently, think critically about some really important issues. Now, before I get into the topic for today, I just want to also announce a few things. Number one, those of you who have been listening to me for any length of time, you know that while I often do these lives or I have videos on my YouTube channel, my actual job is running a law center. Shout out to the Center for Law and Social Justice at Medgar Evers College. And one of the things that we have been doing for the past almost 5 years now is this institution called Advocacy Academy. Advocacy Academy is an amazing institution. It is like one of my favorite programs that we do. It's one of my favorite things to fundraise for because it is not free. It requires me to go out and fundraise. Shout out to all of our philanthropic partners who support this work. But Advocacy Academy is an 11-week virtual course that is taught and was created by this phenomenal angel who walks the earth. Her name is Professor Celeste Morris. She's one of my favorite elders. I love me some Celeste Morris. Can't nobody say nothing bad about no Celeste Morris to me. Not that they will, because Celeste Morris is dope. But she has, for the past several years, partnered with us at the Center for Law and Social Justice to produce this course that is designed for people who ain't never been no professional organizer. You ain't, never got no job doing like politicals type stuff, but you have really good ideas about something you want to address in your community. There's an issue that perhaps you're passionate about, and you got all the passion in the world, and you know that if you could make this plan live in the real world, it could solve a lot of problems. You just may not know how to actually get it out of your head and out of your heart and into the real world. So that's why we created Advocacy Academy, because I believe that, number one, even as an attorney, and don't tell the other attorneys I'm telling y'all this, okay? This is just between you and me. Shh, quiet. As an attorney, I can just tell you that we ain't never going to get black liberation through the courts. I know, shocker. Don't tell the other lawyers I said that, because, a lot of us have difficulty accepting that. And because I'm really clear that we are never going to get black liberation through the courts, I am fundamentally convinced that we have to empower the people who have the best solutions. There is this phrase that I often quote. I believe it is by Glenn Martin. And the phrase goes like this: the people who are closest to the problem are also the people closest to the solutions. Now, those two phrases are often said as if that were the end of the statement. I have since learned that the statement has a third phrase to it. So it's the people who are closest to the problems are often closest to the solutions. That third phrase, however, that gets left off a lot is that they are also kept furthest from the resources. And so my goal is to use Advocacy Academy as a bridge between the people who are close to these issues and close to these problems, so they got really good ideas about how to solve them, and to be a bridge between them and the resources that they need to manifest that idea. Advocacy Academy is an 11-week virtual course. I encourage you, if you are thinking about it, you can sign up for it. We have already got half the class full, and that's because I don't announce it to y'all until I do as much as I can to make sure that New York City has enough time to get all the seats that they can, because, it's a New York City situation. We Brooklyn based. Shout out to Brooklyn and to the Brooklyn Org again, one of our great partners. And so if you are looking for insight as to how to be an advocate, how to take these really good ideas for community problems out of your head and out of your heart and get them into the real world, I encourage you to visit clsj.org. That's C like center, L like love, S like social, J like justice, which stands for Center for Law and Social Justice.org. There you will be able to get information. Go to our program, scroll down to Advocacy Academy, and then click the link, and you will go to our Eventbrite page. The program is not free, but it is less than $100. It is an 11-week course. So a lot of times people see it and they think they got to pay per class. No, it's one fee for the entire 11 weeks. And it's a course. Like, it ain't one of them like just drop in because you decided to be cute and wanted to put on your, let me try out being an advocate today. No, this is for people who've been thinking about these things for a while, just don't have the skills to get them out in the real world, because you will have to produce a project, and your project is your passion project. You will produce a paper that helps you present your project. You will produce a presentation that you will share with the class. I do not teach the class, so please do not think you're going to take the class. Don't sign up for the class thinking you're going to connect with me. I got to say that because sometimes people do that. I'm not teaching the class. The class is taught by Professor Morris. I just go out and fundraise for these sorts of programs. So the program is called Advocacy Academy. It starts September 23rd. It is a Tuesday night based program, and you will be in class from Tuesday at 6 o'clock until 8:30 p.m. It is all virtual. virtual. You can take it from the comforts of your own home, but you will not be able to take it from the comforts of your bed because Professor Morris don't like people sitting up there with a bonnet in the class. You are going to have to act like you in a class that you went outside for. So just wanted to let you all know about that. Tickets are still available. We have, I'm sorry, 2/3 of the class is already full. We have, I guys got to know from my team who is listening, we have 1/3 of the seats left. We keep the class intentionally small because it's a lot of hands-on guidance and discussion, and we want to make sure that people have the capacity that they need or in order to move forward. So again, if you're interested in that course, it is clsj.org. Shout out to everyone at the Center for Law and Social Justice, which is the best place in the world for doing work of this sort. Now, having said all that, let's get into the topic for today. Oh, I'm sorry. One last thing. If you are listening to this show on Urban View, if you're part of Nubia, or if you're part of the podcast family or the YouTube family, just know that we are going to have our first members only YouTube channel event next weekend. I'm going to have some conversations with the people who are members of the channel. Shout out to TMFJ. Shout out to just_saying. These are folks who have been listening to the YouTube channel and have been getting memberships for people that they've been gifting. So thank you. They're in Amsterdam as well. A lot of you who have been rocking with me from the beginning, I appreciate you. We are going to do our first members only for the channel event next weekend. It's going to be a conversation with just you and with you, the members, and me. So if you're a subscriber, that's great, but you will not be able to participate in this unless you are also a member. And thank you to all of you who have been supporting this work. Now we can get into the topics for today. I think that was everything. I'll probably have another administrative thing to update you all on in just a bit. But a racist by any other name is still a racist. A rose by any other name is still a rose. A dandelion by any other name is still a dandelion. A white nationalist jerk by any other name is still a white nationalist jerk. Words mean things. And we had a really interesting experience yesterday where a caller, as you all may have heard because the call is now up on YouTube, Adam from South Dakota. Hey, Adam, hope you're doing all right. But Adam from South Dakota called, and Adam was very upset because Adam, one, was really grieving the murder of Charlie Kirk, and we held space for that because I was someone who Charlie Kirk would have readily harmed, and I'm someone that Charlie Kirk had nothing good to say about, and just because I'm black and a woman, I recognize that there are people in the audience who really appreciate a Charlie Kirk, and so because we are human beings, we can disagree. But if you are calling because you grieving, I'm not going, I ain't going to bash you over that because you grieving somebody who I think the thoughts that I think about that person. But Adam called because he was upset, not just over the murder of Mr. Kirk, but he was also upset because he said the reason that Charlie Kirk had been murdered was because of people like myself who say that the things that Charlie said were racist or fascist. Now, I'm not even going to recap the conversation for you. I would rather you just, after this live is over, feel free to peruse through the YouTube channel. And if you find a playlist called Troll Slay, it's the latest addition to that podcast. I'm sorry, not the podcast, that playlist. But it's basically called Troll Slay Words Matter. And one of the things that Adam was really struggling with as a member of the melanemic portion of humanity, and for those of you who are not familiar with that term, that is a term coined by, what is that older white woman's name? Jane Elliott. Jane Elliott has coined the term melanemic, indicating that white people are the people on the planet who have the least amount of melanin. And one of the things that Adam was struggling with as a melanemic human is that he could not understand why being called a racist for having done something racist was not in fact in itself worse than actually the racist thing that was being done. He was having a real hard time struggling with it. And that's something that a lot of people who have been indoctrinated into white supremacist thinking really struggle with. For them, the idea of being called a racist is worse than actually being a racist. And that really is a holdover from, I think, this 60 plus years of integration where basically white Americans were allowed to still feel racism, but they just had to keep it at home because there were going to be penalties for being outwardly racist in public, right? If you violate the 1964 Civil Rights Act, you were going to get sued. If you were discriminating at work, you might get fired. Maybe, you'd probably get away with it for a long enough time that you would be fine. But they really struggle with this idea that after having been told that they had to keep their racism at home for so long because there were penalties that would be paid by them if they got outed as a racist, for them, being called a racist is the worst thing ever. And one of the things I didn't mention to Adam, but it's going to be really important for this conversation today, is it the following example. If I'm an oncologist, and for those of you not familiar with the term, an oncologist is a doctor who specializes in cancer treatments and cancer diagnoses and whatnot. If I'm an oncologist, or if I'm a family care doctor and I happen to have some oncology expertise in my background, and you come to me because you need your checkup, and your professional, your medical professional, point out to you that as a result of your tests, we can solidly conclude that you have cancer. It would be really stupid, like really, really stupid of you to look at me, the cancer doctor, who is simply letting you know that this cancer exists, and get mad at me for telling you that the cancer exists. I'm not the problem in this example. The problem is the cancer. Right. And so I use that sort of analogy to explain to people about why it is that it is really wrong for you, even if it's offensive to you, Susan or Adam, it's wrong for you to focus on this idea that being called out for the thing that you've done is the problem. That is the type of framework that people who don't have no brought up, see, that's how you all behave when you ain't got no home training, where you have been allowed to escape the consequences of your actions. Well, the rest of us who are melanated, we live in the real world, where we experience the consequences of our actions and the consequences of your actions every single day. So those of us who are in the real world, where we can't escape the consequences of these things, we recognize that your frustration at being called a racist is really a temper tantrum, a grown folk temper tantrum at your inability, your emotional immaturity and incapacity to grapple with the racist realities that you participate further and engage in. Right? But the real question I got to ask is, why are Black people in it? Like, why Black people in this? Why are HBCUs facing bomb threats? My institution is not an HBCU. We're a predominantly Black institution. But why are HBCUs and predominantly Black institutions, whether they be at the collegiate level or just institutions that are freestanding, why are they getting bomb threats? Why you got colleges that serve primarily Black people shutting down because that man was unalived by a member of his own community? Why are Black people in it? Like, and there was this really weird thing that's happening right now. And we talked about this earlier in our moment of gratitude, which you all who don't have SiriusXM will be able to hear on Monday morning in the podcast, because you know that we on our podcast, Lurie breaks it down. We release a 6 a.m. moment of gratitude. That's your inspiration, where you can try to find a sense of balance in the world. And then at 2 o'clock, we hit you with the news. So you'll hear the moment of gratitude from today on Monday morning at 6. But one of the things we talked about was this demand that people are placing on Black people to join in the public grieving that is taking place over this man's murder. And I'm going to have a word for the Democrats like Gavin Newsom and Josh Shapiro in just a minute, but I just want to ask this question, like, why are Black people in this? Was there anyone out there who actually thought that a Black person in Republican as it comes Utah, wherein nearly 60% of the state voted for Donald Trump, Utah, wherein Black people make up less than 2% of the population and white people make up more than 75% of the population, like that Utah, were we really supposed to join you in the ludicrous nature of your mind games, where in some version of your imagination, you actually thought a Black ass person with a whole ass weapon in an open carry Republican state was going to attend a university called the Utah Valley University, where it's white on white on white, and actually engage in that sort of act with that sort of weapon against that sort of man, and then be able to get away? Like, did you really think we was going to join you in that? Have you ever met probable cause while Black? Like, there was no way in hell that anybody Black who was rational actually thought that there was a Black person involved in this. In fact, there was no way in hell that anybody white who was thinking with their right mind actually thought a Black person was involved in this. But we have seen the right wing has exploded and unleashed all of the hidden pent up anger and frustration that they must have been holding on to for the left. And honey, it's bad. You have white women staring directly into the camera and calling the liberals animals. You're animals. Like with their full makeup, fully beat face, like it's bad. And they are unleashing all of this. The Matthew Dowd got fired because he said that Charlie Kirk's words were designed to produce the sort of energy that would allow for some. I don't even have the direct quote, but he's no longer employed. You got people who are being told, like there was a judge in Michigan who was told she needed to step down because what she said was that Charlie Kirk died for what he believed in, and she was like, I ain't stepping down. I'm allowed to post as a judge so long as what I post is factual. That man man said all of this about how he believed that it was worthwhile to have some people unalived by a gun so that he could have his Second Amendment. She said he died for what he believed in. This was a white woman. It's been really interesting to see. Really interesting. But why am I in prayer chains praying with my sister I got my sorors praying. I got my sister friends from college praying. Everybody in my family members praying. We all in group chats praying prayers of protection. We pleading the blood of Jesus down over our children. And so they got me with my Christian Buddhist meditating ass. I'm sitting in front of my altar pleading the blood of Jesus, praying over all the children of the black community who might be exposed, while I'm then chanting for them in front of my Gahunzin. Shout out to the Buddhist community. And then I got to alternate between tarrying before the Lord, speaking in tongues, and hollering Nam Yoho Renge Kyo while being slain in the spirit. All of that because y'all's community can't grapple with the reality of what you have produced. And you are insisting in this effort that requires all of us who are victimized by people like the one who was unalived. You want us to participate in the collective grievance with you. Why? Why would we do that? Gavin Newsom, governor of California, who has been doing great on redistricting, could you please shut the entire fuck up about this? Let us honor that person's memory and encourage the work that he was promoting Nazism. Like he was and Adam, you should just know that if you don't want to be compared to a Nazi, you should not say Nazi-like things. You cannot compare yourself and do the things that the fascist people do and then escape being called a fascist. This is called running into the consequences of your actions. And you should just know that. So when Josh Shapiro, who is the governor of the state of Pennsylvania, is joining in on lowering the flags at half-staff. Did you lower the flags for the Democrats who were just unalived a couple of months ago by the like, do I need to read the list of all the acts of political terrorism and violence that Republicans have? So we don't even have to do all that one because I did it yesterday. We don't even have to do all that. But the reality that you would expect us to join you in that. Number one, Democrats, please shut the fuck up. Please, because what you're doing right now is making it much harder for us to consider engaging with you further electorally. Because if you're going to grieve someone who had Nazi style, we know y'all are soft white nationalists. Don't join the Republicans in being hard white nationalists. Could you please just get yourself together and figure out how to sit in this moment as a white person and call out the wrong things that fellow white people are doing. And if you can't do that, then I would suggest you just hush because you're making it worse for everybody. But we also have this situation where we, the global majority, got to be clear about why we got to keep our head on a swivel right now. And I'm going to make this painstakingly clear because there's a lot of us who are Gen X or younger who did not study what was happening in the boomers and older, right? And in the older Gen X and older. And so because of that, we find ourselves in a situation where we're not quite clear as to just how crazy of a moment we are in right now and how dangerous of a moment that we are in right now. And I want us to be aware of this because if you're not, then you are in for a really weird surprise, bad surprise. And so I'm going to play this clip. I want you all to take a listen. This is from Colorful Story, a dope sister who I've been following for a long time. She's amazing and she does just amazing things and she's super, super smart. And hold on, wait, hold on. Let me make sure I'm on the right screen because I need to be there. Okay, here we go. Let me make sure I hit share and boom, here we go. Okay, Amina, if you could please pull this clip. I want you all to take a listen to Colorful Story as she's going to explain exactly just how dangerous this situation became for all of us.
Good morning. I find it interesting what's going on in the events that followed after Charlie Kirk kicked the bucket. So it's not lost on me that multiple HBCUs have been targeted with violence the next day after he had a dirt nap, right? And it got me to thinking, since Satsuma Satan has taken office, there have been attacks on Black people, such as removing DEI, such as targeting Black prominent women who are in political office, and they're trying to remove any type of connection to our history and institutions. And in my opinion, I think that they're trying to draw people out into anger and into the streets, right? And it hasn't worked. But these attacks on Black institutions such as HBCUs do not seem to be leaving me as something bigger, and here's why. It is well documented that the majority of massacres against Black people have been due to Black people minding their business and seeking liberation and equality. In every instance, Black people were doing nothing but minding their business. And one of the instances where Black people were targeted really stood out to me was the bombing of 4 little girls in Birmingham, Alabama. And it just reminded me that every time there has been Black progress or an attempt for Black liberation, white violence has always followed. We see it with the enslavement of Black people, followed by the banning of slavery in this country, being followed by Reconstruction, being followed by Jim Crow, and the rise of the KKK. We see it with the passing of the Civil Rights Act, followed by the Black Power movement, which also led to the war on drugs targeting Black people through racial profiling. We then see it with the Obama years, and then following up with the violence that ensued after the election of Satsuma Satan. And then we see a moment of peace with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And then we follow it up with the violence that ensued by Satsuma Satan once again. Everything that has been occurring in this time period is just a reminder that white violence will ensue, and it is always unprovoked. Please be mindful. Please be careful. Please be vigilant, because historically speaking, we are in for a whirlwind. Many have been saying how it makes no sense that Black institutions are targeted because Charlie Kirk died, and you're right to an extent, but historically speaking, it makes perfect sense. White violence will be on the rise, and their targets will be Black people.
And the sad state of affairs is that she is absolutely correct. And so that's one of the reasons why, as much as we all know what time it is, we all know that this ain't got nothing to do with us. It's going to have everything to do with us. And another reason why we should be clear that this has nothing to do with us, aside from the fact that it just don't, there is reason for us to be clear about the fact that all is not well in right-wing world. Okay, there is a lot of factional fractions that are established in that space. And what's really interesting to me is something I have not seen a whole lot of people talking about, although it is out here publicly. Laura Loomer, who many of you may be familiar with, she was a white woman who very controversial figure for a time. There was some belief that perhaps she and Donald Trump may have had a thing. She doesn't have an official capacity, but she is very much a part of the right wing, and she is a part of the face of the right wing, of the face of white nationalism, and she has come out vigorously against Charlie Kirk in recent weeks. And she says, I don't ever want to hear Charlie Kirk claim he's pro-Trump ever again. After this weekend, I'd say he's revealed himself as a political opportunist, and I've had a front row seat to witness the mental gymnastics these last 3 years. She has put out a lot of content that has looked at Charlie Kirk and in a very critical way and upheld him. And I believe that in addition to everything that we just heard from Colorful Story, what we also have is a situation where within the right wing, they are fucking up a lot of things, and there's a lot of frustration. And so this idea that you're going to blame Black people really is sort of a distraction from all the things that they're dealing with that they don't quite have a handle on, including Jeffrey Epstein, which we'll come to later. And so let's be clear. I was saying as of yesterday, I'd be hella surprised if they find out who did this. I really would. And because you have some of the least qualified people on the planet running the FBI right now and running the Department of Justice right now. Now, you might be thinking I'm being a little hyperbolic, but we've got podcast bros in charge of our investigative bodies, right? Literally, podcast bros. Oh, and people who were ex-grocery store clerks and gardeners. Now, ain't nothing wrong with being a grocery store clerk. I have bagged a lot of groceries in my day. Shout out to the commissary that I used to bag groceries at. Shout out to the military. I am an Army dependent, or I was, so I was at them commissaries bagging groceries. I'm very good at bagging groceries, quite frankly. But he was Tony, nothing wrong with being a grocery bagger or a grocery store clerk or being a gardener. I garden, but none of them qualifications allow me to then be qualified to work as the head of the Department of Justice or the FBI. So let's talk about Kash Patel, who actually is an attorney, and he has some attorney experience, some legal experience. But you know what? So do I. I guarantee you that there is nothing that he was exposed to as an attorney that properly positions him for the gravity of the situation he's in right now, mainly because of who he has around him. People like Diane Bongino, whose major contribution to the planet is being a podcast bro. I don't know if I'm unalived in some horrific way. If I'm unalived in any kind of way, I want actual experts researching my case and investigating my case. But as we see from this really mean article from the Daily Beast. We're in a situation right now where we don't have the best people at all in charge of anything. And one of the things that they said in this article, which was, again, mean, but it's called Keystone Cash Patel's Catastrophic Failure in FBI's Charlie Kirk Manhunt. And they're talking about the fact that they say, any law enforcement agency is going to tell you within the first 24 hours after a murder, those are the most crucial hours. And what they say in the article is, in this time, that 24 hours, the killer is on the move and trying to evade capture. Real life shooters aren't like Frederick Forsyth's fictional assassin in The Day of the Jackal. They're out in the open. They panic. They make mistakes. But as 24 hours passed since Charlie Kirk was shot in cold blood as he sat in the middle of the Utah Valley University campus, the hunt for the gunman was reduced to a fuzzy photo and a plea to a phone call to call 1-800-CALL-FBI. FBI boss Kash Patel threw some cash at the problem. This is a direct quote. I didn't make that up, although I think that's a great pun. Kash Patel threw some cash at the problem, offering $100,000, but they're learning that money does not solve everything. Now, Attorney General Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and his deputy Don Bongino may have been doing a fabulous job, according to the president. That's a direct quote. But faced with solving a major crime, instead of arresting illegal immigrants outside of Home Depots, they've been found sorely wanting. And yes, they have, because it's real easy to pick up the mommies and the poppies when they pushing a churro cart. It ain't no problem catching the Latinos when they running from Home Depot or if they running in the field, but do an actual investigation, that's different. And wouldn't it be helpful if you had people who were doing investigations who were qualified to do the investigations? It would have probably been a good use, it would have probably been a better use of resources had the Trump administration decided to leave the FBI, the DHS, the DEA, the ATF, and all them agencies. Remember all the agents that they reallocated and they shuffled around and took them out the field where they were supposed to be preventing terrorism and instead put them to do things like redacting Donald Trump's name out of the Jeffrey Epstein files, wherein we heard from congressional hearings that thousands upon thousands of FBI officer hours had been rededicated to going through thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pages of the Jeffrey Epstein files, not to find people, but to basically redact Donald Trump's name. Remember all that? Wouldn't it have been great if those agents from the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, and the DHS, wouldn't it be great if they were not accompanying the National Guardsmen who have become the National Gardeners in Washington, D.C., where they are doing all of the very serious anti-terrorism work of picking up trash in the streets of D.C., a city that has already experienced a significant fall off in crime and was continuing to do so without the millions of dollars of daily waste going into having these people patrol the streets. Wouldn't that have been good? But no, we've got Kash Patel. And it's been really interesting to see how 9/11 yesterday, which is usually this very sacred holiday, not holiday. Oh, that's the wrong word. Lord, forgive me. This 9/11 is this sacred moment in Americana where everyone is supposed to sort of dedicate their time to it. And as I say in the podcast, which you will again hear later today, not that there's anything wrong with commemorating that horrible, significant event, but there is a style to it that Americans have participated in every single year, except this year. This year, the vice president, instead of going to honor 9/11, was going to be a pallbearer to move Charlie Kirk's, to move the decedent from one location to another. You got Kash Patel, who's at the 9/11 event, and then he goes down directly to be involved in the investigation itself. I'm not sure what's him and Dan Bongino going to do that? They're going to do a podcast episode on it? Ain't nothing wrong with doing a podcast episode. I'm just saying we should be clear that some things are off here. And Katie Fang, who is a reporter who used to be on MSNBC, and has now been doing a lot of good news in terms of making sure that people are aware as to what's going on. She had some things to say about this because something don't pass the smell test. Something is really off here. And I want you guys to take a listen to this clip. Amina, I'm going to share my screen again. I want you to take a listen to this clip as Katie Fang is talking here about just how not nonsensical this moment that we're in actually is. Amina, if you could press play so we could hear this clip. Thank you so much.
So the rush to judgment by not only Patel and also by Trump and others is galling. Truly galling. Okay. So part of the reason why the FBI has been having this level of dysfunction is evidenced by the fact that we saw an incredible lawsuit that was filed yesterday by former FBI people, including Brian Driscoll. And I'm going to do a separate video on that lawsuit because I really want to get into the details with you. But that lawsuit shows that Patel has weaponized a federal agency as powerful as the FBI to be able to go after people, and that the FBI has basically been hollowed out to be able to service the interests of Donald Trump and his policies. What's relevant, especially to Utah, is the following. FBI leaders forced the resignation just last week of a decorated female Pakistani-American counterterrorism agent who was appointed in February of this year to run the Salt Lake City field office. She was the SAC, the special agent in charge. She's been sacked. The SAC was sacked. At least 18 of 53 special agents in charge who run FBI field offices across the country have now been pushed out under the Trump administration, and among them, half have been women, people of color, or both, according to data that was provided to NBC News by current and former FBI officials, who declined to be named, citing fear of retaliation. So the FBI is getting rid of its competent folks. And at a time when all Americans deserve to have the protection and safety and the services of a competent FBI, we have to really have a big question mark as to whether or not that is occurring. And then, as we know, and I've covered here extensively here at the Katie Fang News channel, the Department of Homeland Security official who is overseeing terrorism prevention, including domestic terrorism, which this could qualify as being, is a 21-year-old college graduate with no national security expertise who interned at the Heritage Foundation and pretty much has zero experience to be able to run a multi-million-dollar agency. Thomas Fugate.
Thomas Fugate. Well, I knew I recognized that name from somewhere. Thomas Fugate. Where have I seen that name before? That is correct. I remember Thomas Fugate, and so do you. I know y'all remember him because he's been around. He's the gardener. He's the person who basically his only experience includes the fact that he is a gardener. In fact, I want y'all to see his picture because you will then feel, you know what? I'm being mean. I want y'all to see what he looks like so that you can be confident that the people that you are listening to and the people who are in charge of these things, you can be confident that they are going to be able to handle it. And you need to be confident about this because this is difficult stuff. It's difficult stuff we're dealing with. Here is Thomas Fugate. This is him. Don't you feel better? This is the 22-year-old Thomas Fugate. His previous experience really prepared him for this role because he is now in charge of making sure that we are all safe. And at 22 years old, he brings a wealth of experience, including, not to be discounted, the previously mentioned ability to really bag your groceries well. Hello? Have you ever bagged your groceries, your own groceries? Do you know how much strategy goes into grocery bagging? Do you? Do you know how that strategy can then be applied to domestic terrorism? And do you know that when you're a gardener, you've got to dig for the scoop. When you're a gardener, you got skills that can totally prepare you to lead the Department of Homeland Security's anti-terrorism thing. Because when you're a gardener, you got to look for things that don't belong, like insects and pests and rodents that are coming to chew your tomatoes and the carrots. You can totally transfer those skills. America, be confident. Be confident. The best people are on top of it, and they are going to handle it to the best of their 22-year-old capacity and capability. We're in a situation where that man, he was unalived on camera. And it wasn't until hours later that we had any clear information. In fact, after he was unalived on camera and there were internet pictures of it, the official footage from the tower that was 200 yards from where he was sitting, that took over a day to find, took over a day to make it public, according to the Daily Beast. The FBI said early on in the morning they had a picture of who the suspect was. And then once they said they had a picture of who the suspect was, what did they do? They cleared the campus. We heard the announcement on the major news outlets. They said, yes, we are clearing the campus. We have somebody arrested or somebody under control, a suspect, a person of interest. They told the campus to go home, even though the experts who had been a part of these sorts of investigations and the reporting on them had said the entire campus is a crime scene. They sent everybody home. And then we find out you didn't really have the suspect in the first place. You had some 77-year-old Pop. Wasn't no way Pop was going to be able to climb up to that roof, do what that man did, and then jump down. Wasn't going to happen. And so it took so much to realize how much they had fumbled. They have really fucked this up in some pretty significant ways. According to the report, the FBI said early in the morning that they had the picture of the suspect, but would not release it unless they failed to identify the suspect on their own. Then a few hours later, they changed their minds. The implication of failure was clear. By that time, the suspect was long gone. What kind of Keystone Cop you can't find your tail between your legs. You bumbling and stumbling. Larry, Moe, Curly, Three Stooges sort of operation is being run here. Who is in charge? Because it can't be the podcast bros. The local police acknowledged we were completely ill prepared for this. There were only 6 local police officers for a crowd of 3,000. Oh, and Kirk's own professional security. But where's the FBI? There was no security coming in to an event like this. But again, it's in Utah, where there's an open carry state. And quite frankly, we now know that according to the reports that they have captured somebody, or somebody was turned in who was believed to be a suspect. He was turned in by family members, and surprising no one, it's a 22-year-old white male. So a racist by any other name is still a racist. A fascist by any other name is still a fascist. And if you call to say things like, I don't have a racist bone in my body, you know what I do know about the bones in your body? I know that they're surrounded by muscle. I know you've got veins and arteries. There's blood pumping through your body, evidently by a heart, which you don't actually tap into the emotional power of. That's what I know about your body. But if you do racist things, if you do fascist things, the bad part about the doing of a racist or fascist thing is the doing of the racist or fascist thing. It is not in the calling out of the racist or fascist thing. And so long as you believe that the calling out of the racist or fascist thing is worse than actually being a racist or fascist, then that is why you are a part of a society that has clearly revealed itself as being incapable for prime time, a society that has no capacity to engage either domestically or internationally in any way that's going to make anyone to continue to work with you. And you are basically reminding us that you are, in fact, as it pertains to humanity, the weakest link. And we should all be willing to say goodbye, at least to your way of doing things. Then we're going to have to leave it here. We got to go into commercial break. On the other side of it, our friends from Higher Heights are going to be joining us to give us an update as to what's been happening with Black women seeking elected office and what's happening politically as a result of all of this craziness that's going on right now. And keep in mind, this thing that we've been talking about isn't even the biggest thing that's happened in this week. We found out that the Venezuelan boat that got blown up by the United States was not a drug trafficking boat. Those were 11 farm type people. So I don't know what's happening there. We find out that a whole bunch of other things happening internationally that, as I mentioned to the Urban View audience, that South Korean plant ain't going nowhere at all. So we done blown up international relations with South Korea. It's been a lot happening right now, including, as I told y'all before, Poland having to involve other members of NATO in its defense and protection of its airspace from Russia. Why is the vice president? Priorities. We're going to head to commercial break. Much more to come. We'll be right back after this.